Good evening. My name is Rebecca Hawthorne, and I am president of the League of Women Voters of the Wayzata Plymouth area. I'd like to welcome our candidates, our audience, and our viewers on behalf of the League of Women Voters, Wayzata Plymouth area. The League of Women Voters is a 104-year-old volunteer, nonpartisan organization that encourages the informed and active participation of citizens in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. The League does not support or oppose any political party or candidate. The views expressed in this forum this evening are those of the candidates, not those of the League of Women Voters. It is our purpose in sponsoring forums such as this to provide you with an opportunity to hear candidates discuss face-to-face the issues that are important to you. This is a nonpartisan forum. We ask that campaign buttons and T-shirts not be worn, nor signs nor literature distributed in this room. Please silence your electronic devices at this time. And now I'd like to call on Judy Johnson of the Wayzata Chamber of Commerce and our partner in this forum.
Thank you, Rebecca. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. My name is Judy Johnson, and I serve as the Director of Membership Services at the Greater Wayzata Area Chamber of Commerce. On behalf of the Chamber and Becky Pearson, our President, who could not be here this evening, we want to thank the Wayzata Plymouth Area League of Women Voters for their leadership and partnership in putting on this important mayoral forum. I've always believed that good government starts in our own backyards, and to that end, the Chamber appreciates its important relationship with the City of Wayzata over many, many years. Our membership represents over 400 businesses and organizations in the West Metro, with about half located in the City of Wayzata. Our mission is to be a positive force in communities, connecting, promoting, and supporting our members. And our vision is to be a place where businesses and community thrive together. Tonight, we will have an opportunity to hear from the candidates who wish to lead this fair city forward as our next mayor. It should come as no surprise that the business leaders in Wayzata, along with the wonderful residents of Wayzata, care deeply about your thoughts and plans to keep this community strong, welcoming, and vibrant for decades to come. The Chamber appreciates each of the candidates' past public service and your many years of leadership in this community. We also welcome future conversations on important issues to the business community as we work together. Again, the Chamber extends our appreciation to the League of Women Voters for all of your dedicated work to encourage an active and informed participation of citizens at all levels of governments. So thank you, everyone, for being with us here tonight.
Thank you, Judy. And now I call on tonight's moderator, Jackie Wells.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Jackie Wells, your moderator for this evening's forum. I'm a resident of Plymouth and a member of the League of Women Voters of Golden Valley. Tonight's forum is provided to give you the opportunity to learn about the candidates running for Wayzata Mayor. There's never enough time to cover all of the issues in a setting such as this, so if your questions are not addressed, feel free to contact the candidate directly. The League of Women Voters posts complete, unedited recordings of its forums. Editing is authorized only for official media reporting. Only the full, unedited recording may be used by other persons and organizations. The rules for this evening's forum are as follows. Candidates will be allowed an opening statement with a maximum of 1 minute to state their experiences, platform, and objectives. A question and answer period will follow the opening statements. The answers will be confined to 1 minute unless designated by me. Opening statements will be given in alphabetical order, and questions will be answered in a rotating order after that. A 15-second warning will be given to the candidates. The candidates will also be given a 2-minute closing statement. Candidates, please finish your question quickly when you see the stop sign, or you will be interrupted. No references of a personal nature will be tolerated. A person's public record may be examined, but not their character. This forum is made available to encourage the voting public to focus on the issues and not on personalities. We ask that there be no demonstrations in support or opposition to the candidates or their positions, and that candidates be allowed their full time to get their points across. The public has been encouraged to submit questions online in advance of this forum. For those in the audience, if you have a question, write it on a note card available from our volunteers and raise your hand to have it picked up. Audience questions will be taken for the first 30 minutes of the forum. The timekeeper will alert me when 30 minutes have elapsed. Questions that are unclear, hostile, or of a personal nature will not be used. Those that fall in the same general area may be consolidated. So the candidates running for mayor of Wayzata are Jeff Buchanan, Andy Mullen, and Barry Pettit. So now we will begin with our 1-minute introductory remarks, starting with Jeff Buchanan.
There we go. Well, thank you, and good evening. It's great to see everyone here tonight, and what a great turnout, and thank you very much for showing up. First of all, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. Second, I'd like to thank my fellow candidates, Andrew and Barry, for signing up for this, being interested in the office of mayor, and the courage actually to run. And third, I want to thank all of you for showing up. Again, it's a testament to this town. It's an interest in our government, and you should be very proud of yourself. My successful business background, as well as my recent experience with Wayzata City government as a planning commissioner and a city council member, makes me particularly qualified to be mayor. I look forward to your questions tonight. I hope our answers will help you better define our different points of view and guide you as you decide who will best be suited to lead Wayzata into the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Andy Mullen.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Mullen, and Wayzata is a great city, but also a growing city. And with that growth, we have some challenges that need to be addressed. And in my view, we need to have a steady voice to protect what makes Wayzata special: safety, walkability, quality infrastructure, parks and public space that are the envy of many. By background, I'm actually still working as an executive in the aerospace industry, focusing on satellites. As I said earlier, Wayzata is growing, and we have to have the right leadership that's able to navigate our growth responsibly. It's much easier to admire our problems than it is to roll up your sleeves and find solutions to get the job done. I've been a resident of Wayzata for 29 years. I have 17 years of public service to the citizens of Wayzata. And it's nice to see so many folks here. This is the first competitive race for mayor in 25 years. So that means for the last 25 years, the mayor's position is run unopposed, and I think that's good for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Barry Pettit, please.
Okay. I've got 4 parts to my campaign. One is to fix the challenges caused by our lakefront redevelopment: the noise, the traffic, the parking, the reckless e-bikers, parking deck behavior, staggering maintenance costs, safety, 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 safety. 2, requiring a lean city budget. 3, we have transformed from a modest village to a busy tourist destination, from charm to urban. I have the professional skills to help redefine our future in terms of all the things we forgot about: scale, character, and design. Number 4, we have done a lot to help our retail and restaurants prosper via the millions spent on the lakefront and the parking ramp, shrinking our sidewalks for dining, and public toilets with a view. Now it's our turn, it's our town, and I'm focusing on the people that live here.
Thank you. And you will be the first responder for our next question, and it's on priorities. The question is, what is your top priority for Wayzata as a candidate for mayor, and how would you address that if elected?
I'm next?
Yes, you are.
Time's up yet?
Nope, just
Okay.
beginning.
You know, I think I really want to spend time with our city government, because if you think about it, everything we do runs through that group of people. The administrative side of it, whatever the process is, the city planners, et cetera. And I really have to be convinced. I really got to be convinced that we've got the right people. We're running lean. We've seen budgets that have grown dramatically beyond inflationary budgets over the past 10 years. And I really need to get to the heart of that. It seems to be the core. And once I can address that and understand that, then it's going to be a lot easier to branch out from there.
Thank you. Andrew Mullen, please.
In my view, what I've heard from residents most often is fiscal responsibility and accountability. So focusing on our needs and not wants. Our city budget has ballooned in the last 4.5 years by 40%, and we just approved, the council and mayor just approved another 8.76% increase. So we got to get that back into a responsible area, and I think that's done by trade-offs, not by just rolling forward and saying we have to do everything. Within that, public safety is number one in terms of resourcing. Our police and fire are underpaid. We have retention issues, and we have resource issues around public safety in community policing. So within that, again, it's budget, framework, fiscal responsibility, and accountability. Get it back in line.
Thank you. Jeff Buchanan, please.
Thank you. Obviously, I have several priorities, and they're all very important to me. To differentiate, I guess, from my colleagues here, one thing that's fallen off the strategic priorities in the city is protection of our natural resources. And I was involved in the solar effort, and we can talk about that later. But I think one thing I'm most concerned about or curious about is how we use water and how we protect Lake Minnetonka. So I guess natural resources as a point of differentiation from my colleagues is what I would focus on.
Thank you. Andrew Mullen, be the first person for our next question. It's on finance. What are your ideas for managing city revenues and expenses?
So it's going to sound repetitive from my first priority, but I mean, I think we get back to essential services again. Because of the growth, we've experienced petty crime, noise, loitering. These are things that need to be addressed, and we need to invest further into police to be able to do that. And so how do you get at fiscal accountability? First of all, I wouldn't support raising the operating budget by more than 3 or 4% each year. And you do it by trading off what's not necessary now and trading off wants, not needs. And that's how you get it back in line. And then you find creative ways to finance the wants, much like we did with the lakefront project, like we've done to restore historic buildings in town. So it's trade-offs and accountability, and it's about making sure you hold the line on our budget.
Thank you. Jeff Buchanan?
Thanks. So this budget has come up a number of times already. And what people need to realize is there are 7 public meetings that discuss the budget every year and available to every one of you and my colleagues here to comment and help define what's important. I've been through 4 of those. I have yet to see any public comment on the budget. It's a perfect opportunity to really take charge and to give the council and staff some valuable feedback and input.
Thank you. Barry Pettit, please.
You know, the budget thing is difficult because it has grown excessively beyond inflation. But likewise, we've also incurred a lot of additional things in this town by virtue of all these dramatic changes. And when we talk about safety, that's police. Police get expensive. So if we want to solve that on one side, we've got to come up with the money to solve that. And that goes antithetical to the idea of cutting cost. So I think it's a complicated, I think it's going to be a complicated solution. Not impossible, but it's really going to take some drilling down from the city staff to help me understand exactly how they have laid out their plan, because it does seem that we have become excessive in areas and maybe not done as good a job in some others.
Thank you. And you get to be first for this next question again. This one's on development. What is your vision for development in Wayzata, and what types of uses and structures would you support?
You know, for me, development is interesting. As an architect, I look at the world through a lens of design. I look at almost everything as design. You know, the clothes you're wearing, the cars you buy, the pencil you buy, the glasses you wear. And I think the same thing is true with the development of a town. And it was so interesting in the comprehensive plan, which wasn't done that long ago at a great expense. One of the key words repeated multiple times was charming, 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 charming. And I haven't seen anything charming, 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 charming. Somewhere along the way, we've got to disconnect with the kinds of things we want, with the kind of town we wanted to be and what we really have become. So for me, there's a high priority on the design side.
Thank you. Andrew Mullen, please.
Thanks. So in general, calm it down. Growth needs to be planned for appropriately. And we need to be proactive in shifting the discussions away from units per acre into scale, mass, and design. And candidate Pettit actually is responsible for a lot of the large buildings in downtown Wayzata during his tenure. And so, I agree with him on focus on design, but and the other thing is small town character. One way to define small town character is you don't have big city problems. And so we have a couple of big city problems that are creeping into town that need to be addressed. And I think if you focus on responsible development, calm it down, and remove the big city problems, we'll meet the goal.
Thank you. Jeff Buchanan, please.
Thanks. I think it's time to take a little bit of a pause, take a breather, digest what we have accomplished. And but I want to say that I sat on two committees. I sat on the Zoning Standards Committee. I also sat on the Design Standards Committee, which have really reworked and provided guardrails for future development. A lot of work went into that, a lot of community feedback, and actually the document is incredibly good. So I do think future development will have to stand the test of those guidelines that we've put out. And as I say, I think they're remarkably good.
Thank you. You are first up for our next question on business growth. There is significant empty retail space in the city of Wayzata. What do you see as the greatest challenge to starting or growing a business in Wayzata? What, if anything, should the role of city government be in supporting businesses?
Yeah, well, great question. I think particularly the empty spaces in the Pres Homes development, I personally have called the leasing agent, and I'm lucky I get a call back several weeks later. They seem to be very disinterested in renting the space they have there. It is expensive. I guess the time would be to actually have the mayor talk to the management and the Pres Homes senior leaders and try to work out, well, how do we get things accomplished there? Because Mid-America clearly is getting in the way of the ability for those spaces to be leased.
Thank you. Barry Pettit, please.
You know, it's an interesting question because you're dealing with market forces. And market forces have to respond to what a business costs. And if you're going to live in a town like Wayzata that is becoming as expensive as it is, for example, Willette's left, and the rent on their new space didn't fit their pro forma at all, and it's not uncommon. That's just the catch-22 of Wayzata that everyone is caught up in. I'm not sure we can do much more for our businesses than we have. As I mentioned earlier, we've invested almost $34 million in ramps and activity on the lake to bring people in. At some point, I'm sort of a more laissez-faire on that, and I do believe it's an interesting comment on the Presbyterian homes. I look at that as a planning problem. If you don't have people driving by your front door, you don't have retail. It's that dirt simple.
Thank you. Andrew Mullen.
Could you repeat the question again?
Sure. There is significant empty retail space in the city of Wayzata. What do you see as the greatest challenge to starting or growing a business in Wayzata? And what, if anything, should the role of city government be in supporting businesses?
Sure. So just a comment on background. I mean, our city businesses pay 40% of all the bills in town, right? Police, fire, water, streets. So they're an important stakeholder. But I actually agree with candidate Pettit that it may be a little overcooked, particularly in the downtown area with 1,000 restaurant seats, 18 independently owned restaurants. You know, I think that's thriving part of retail. Across the board, hard goods retail is struggling everywhere, right? Not just in Wayzata. So I think it has to be experiential retail, unique, independent. In terms of the role of government around it, I think there's limited things that can be done. But right now, I think the business community is thriving compared to 10 years ago, or 5 years ago, or 3 years ago. And I don't look at it in terms of is the space empty. I look at it as, you know, the businesses here are thriving. And I am actually the only one up here that owns a business in Wayzata. So I think I have, you know, some real experience by living here and owning a business in town.
Thank you. And you're up first for our next question. The topic is short-term rentals. What is your view of short-term residential rentals in Wayzata, their positive or negative impact on the city, and the need, if any, for regulation?
Sure. Well, so I think what we're referring to is Airbnb and VRBO, so folks that can go online and, you know, sort of rent out their property. I think there's 18 in town. They're not regulated today. They should be. We have regulation on our long-term rentals, and I don't see how short-term rentals should be exempt from that. It's about being a good neighbor. It's about having safe tenants, whether they be short-term or long-term, and I think we already have a model that can be easily applied to allow short-term rentals, but to allow it responsibly.
Thank you. Jeff Buchanan, please.
Great, thank you. I know this issue came up at a workshop, I believe, and recently. And I believe the city is asking permits for short-term rentals. And I believe Council Member Sorensen had a great idea in limiting short-term rentals. The owner must be in the residence at least 6 months during the year in order for them to be able to rent their space out. I like the idea. I think having some restrictions is important, but I know the city is working on that as we speak.
Thank you. Barry Pettit, please.
You know, it seems that the town, one of the things that's always fascinated me is the term unintended consequences. And it seems we've got so many things that we're trying to put together, so many hiccups right now through a lot of the growth that's happened in town. I'm just not a favor of adding one more into the equation right now. It may be fine for another time, but it just seems to me there are too many moving parts to these kind of ideas, and they're too easily, I think, it's too easy for other problems to come up, and I just keep thinking to myself, don't need to do that right now. It's too easy to do anytime you want. Just don't need to do it right now.
Thank you. And you get to start on our next question with the topic of public safety.
Let's see.
What matters of public safety, if any, do you believe require change in city policy, ordinance, or funding, such as police recruitment and retention, or pedestrian safety measures, et cetera?
Yeah. Well, you know, it's interesting because virtually every morning I would sit with a couple guys and have coffee on Lake Street. And it really, I will admit, some of these guys that can do the wheelies on their electric bikes are pretty fascinating. But we're seeing more and more of that kind of activity. And you talk to people that have almost been hit by these folks, and it's again, the idea is you start bringing more people and you get these unintended consequences. So that's, as Lake Street specifically just needs more police. police surveillance, and not surveillance, but consequences. Because nothing matters if there are no consequences. And so I think that's where I'd put the energy for right now. And if it requires more police, unfortunately it's more money, but that's one of the early investigations with the city staff trying to understand how we reconfigure the budget to make sure that we're safe.
Thank you. Andrew Mullen, please.
Yeah, so public safety is very important, and ensuring that our first responders, our fire and police have the tools to do the job. We need to keep them independent. We need to keep local control and not be a shared service to another community. And for me, the missing part of this for safety is what I would call community policing. So it's not the 18 now that we'll have next year of police and cars with guns. It's actually feet on the street, not with a gun, enforcing noise, loitering, traffic, parking. That's what is causing, this introduction of big city problems. And in order to do that, we need to have competitive pay. We just lost a CSO to a $6 more in another city. We're paying our firefighters to start $14 an hour. And so we have retention issues. So we need to resource them appropriately to retain what we've got. And we need to invest more in community policing, which is in addition to the 18 cops on the street.
Thank you. Jeff Buchanan, please.
Yeah, well, this is an easy one because we have invested. My last time on council, we authorized 2 new police officers. It takes 18 months to get them. So we are investing in our protection. The one thing I would also say is I think it's important when it comes to fire. By the way, they've recruited 8 more firefighters, so now we're going to be at 29, which is 1 short of what is ideal, and that's a terrific work. But I would say that what I would like to do is invest in a full-time fire chief, and that's actually the recommendation from the current one. So I think that would be important.
Thank you. And you are first for our next question on the topic of cannabis. Under current law, cannabis production facilities and dispensaries are legal in Minnesota. The City of Wayzata is currently evaluating 4 separate scenarios developed by Point 7 Consulting for a municipal dispensary plan for cannabis. What are your thoughts regarding a municipal dispensary for cannabis in Wayzata?
Oh, interesting question. It's certainly one that I'm sure people have an opinion on. At first, when I heard about municipal, I didn't think it was such a great idea, but in talking to staff, and I feel like it could be a revenue source. The city cannot refuse people license. It's against the state law. So it seems best that we control that aspect, and also is a revenue source which will help keep our property taxes in line.
Thank you. Barry Pettit, please.
Again, it goes back to the same thing of all the things that I think we need to work on. This is another one of those classic unintended consequences, and we're getting in over our head on this, and we can do it anytime we want. We don't have to immediately get into this. I need to settle things down in this town and resolve so many of these current active problems. The idea of going into the cannabis thing, I think, again, is going to cause more hiccups. I think it's going to be more struggle for the police, and then somebody says, hey, now we need more police. I think we're going the wrong direction. And again, we can get into that business any time we want. It doesn't have to be now.
Thank you. Andrew Mullen, please.
Yeah, this is a tricky one, because marijuana is now legal across the state, but I'm a skeptic for the city getting into selling and distributing marijuana. We can't prevent someone from opening a store here, but why not get into the business? It'll cost a couple $1 million to build a facility to be able to do it or to find rent. That couple $1 million of capital, I think, could be put to better use. To Barry's point, if we so choose to do it later, we can. There's much lower hanging fruit to generate fees or revenue than marijuana. I think we need to focus on where it can be used or consumed, just like booze, and where it can be sold is regulation, not getting into the business as the government.
Thank you. And you are first up for our next question, which is on housing. What measures would you support, if any, to address housing needs in Wayzata?
Okay, so, I mean, that could go a lot of different ways. Are we talking about affordable housing? Are we talking residential versus commercial? I'll try to answer it in two ways and address affordable housing. Affordable housing is tricky to do in a town like Wayzata because of the cost of the land and the high taxes. And so if we need more affordable housing, I think we should focus on the multi-unit stock that we have and repurpose it and make it more affordable. But before we even do that, I think we need to focus on workforce housing for our fire. We now have a 10-minute rule, meaning they can live as much as 10 minutes outside of town. Why does it get pushed further and further out? Because our rank and file firefighters can't afford to live near town. So workforce housing for our staff, for public safety comes first for me. And I guess I'm going to get clipped, so I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Jeff Buchanan.
I just want to make one comment. It's the Office of Mayor has to be able to handle a lot of and juggle a lot of things at the same time. We can't kick everything down the road. And in business, I always talked about all the spinning plates. And we have to be able to manage those. There are a lot coming at you, but the mayor has to be able to do that. As far as housing goes, I think we need to keep up what we have and also look for ways to build new affordable housing. There are ways to do it. I wouldn't give up on it.
Thank you. Barry Pettit, please.
You know, it's interesting. I've had a different spin on that for a lot of years, and one of it is the best thing Wayzata does better than anyone is pay taxes. And I'm not sure people appreciate the number. I think the property tax per capita from the city of Wayzata hovers around $8,200. Edina, $3,100. I remember telling the Met Council a long time ago about affordable housing, said, leave us alone, we pay taxes better than anybody. And given the nature of the town that we are and the increasing costs of property, et cetera, it is just not a wise place to venture into the affordable housing, that kind of a market. And I think it's just inherently difficult with who we are. We don't have the space. We don't have the land. We do a great job of paying taxes.
Thank you. And I think you know the pattern, so you're up first for our next question. The topic is communication and community outreach. What information about council activities do you think is important to share with Wayzata community members? What, in your opinion, are effective ways to communicate that information?
I'm not sure if I shy away from the notion of transparency, but I'm taking this a whole different direction. There is sort of the idea of the representative government, and that's why you have elections. Because there's a lot of information people on the council try to assimilate. And it's very, very difficult to get that equally out to everybody in the city. So you're sort of relying on your council people to do a good job, and if they don't, you don't elect them again. But as it works right now between the community television and the portal paper, I think Wayzata does a fine job at trying to communicate. And I think as it was said earlier, is people have to go seek out stuff. You know, I don't think we're going to come up with a system that knocks on your door and says, you make sure you understand everything that's going on. It's a two-way street in this responsibility of communication.
Thank you. Andrew Mullen.
Yeah, so I think Wayzata has become very effective about communicating decisions after they've been made. Where we need to improve is engage citizens before the decisions are made. And I have a commitment to be more open and out there to engage the community before decisions are made. I think the second suggestion that I would have to our governance structure is our boards, commissions, advisory groups are well-intentioned, but I don't think we're clear enough on the charter of what advice they need to bring to the council. And I'd flip the order. Right now, we have a staff liaison representing these groups. I would flip it to make a citizen representing the groups to engage the council with support from staff. A little bit the tails wagging the dog here a little bit. You know, community first, staff implements what community wants. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Buchanan.
Yeah, thanks. Transparency is really important to me. I spent a lot of time thinking about this, and you know, there's a lot available on the website, but it's not so easy to find. So I would make that easier. But one thing I would do is have a mayor's report, a regular mayor's report that would link to parts. First of all, report on what's going on of importance to the community and link to those spots on the website so people can easily find. The information is there, but it's not so easy to find. I'd make it easier.
Thank you. And just to let the audience know, 30 minutes has passed, ending the time for us accepting new questions. And we will carry on. And the first person to respond is Andrew Mullen. The topic is working with others. Please give examples of how you have been able to work productively with those who do not share your views.
Sure. The role of mayor really is mostly ceremonial. They have the same equal powers to other council people, and it takes 3 people or sometimes 4 to get anything done. So 1, you have to start with building consensus with at least 3 and sometimes 4 of your colleagues up here. Second is engaging boards and commissions in a responsible way, and I've already articulated what I think needs to change there. But bring those commissions forward in more of a charter of advisory and less about just sort of reporting out what staff says. And so in terms of accomplishments, probably the proudest accomplishment when I served on council was breaking a 30-year impasse of streets and water in Holdridge. And boy, did that take working together with the community, with council, with the lawyers, with assessing, and that issue had been kicked down the road for 30 years. I actually built a consensus in the community to actually move that forward for the first time in our community. So that's a track record of getting it done.
Thank you. Jeff Buchanan.
Great, thank you. Throughout my career, I built relationships. It was the key to my success. And the hallmark of building a relationship is listening to people. And you listen, and I always tell my team, my staff, is you have 2 of these and 1 of these. There's a reason. Listen to people, and you will learn an awful lot. So I think that's how you build relationships. That's how you can get over any conflict or the divide that might exist between people.
Thank you. Barry Pettit.
I've always been fascinated by the aspect of asking questions. And it's amazing because if it's done well, you're coming from a point of view of not a point of view, but trying to seek what the other person or the other group is saying. And it's fascinating how you keep asking the questions and drilling, and sometimes ideas get much more solid, and sometimes they start to dissolve. But it's always been the way that I've addressed all the work that I've done, is I need to get questions, because sometimes when you drill down, ideas get better, or sometimes they dissolve. But it seems to be, at least for my formula, it's worked pretty well.
Thank you. And you get to be first for this next question.
This pattern yet.
I know. Random numbers are kind of funky. As mayor, how can the city and the chamber strengthen their working relationship even more throughout the year to benefit the local economy?
First of all, I think the chamber does a great job. They've got a couple great events that have been going on for years now. And so one assumes that always is institutionalized, brings in lots of people into town. So in terms of an introduction to the city, whether it's Chili Open or the James J. Hill Days, those are pretty tough to beat. I know the chamber would like to see the fees lowered that the city charges them for their events, and they get to be pretty pricey. It's a group that I've known them for a long time, and I think they do a nice job. I think it would probably have to be an issue of reversing it and coming to the city and said, what do you need from us? And I think that would be an interesting line of questioning to find out where there may be some frustrations or where we can build on some better ideas. But I think, all in all, I'm pretty proud of the work that they do.
Thank you. Andrew Mullen, please.
I think generally the relationship with the chamber is fairly strong. I think they are heavy on more events than they are maybe advocating for specific local business issues. But I can bring a perfect example of how we could strengthen it and how we could engage our business community better. The current administration went to lobby at the Capitol to push a sales tax on restaurants and businesses without really consulting them and consulting the chamber. And to me, that's just sort of a perfect way that, you know, before we're going to take action on something as big as that, consult the business community and don't surprise them by a lobbyist at the Capitol.
Thank you. And Jeff Buchanan.
So I've been a businessman for many years, 30 years plus. I'm a member of the chamber. I think regular conversations with the chamber leadership and asking what is it that, what obstacles do they face and how can we help in alleviating them would make sense. But again, relationship and having a good conversation.
Thank you. And you will be first with our next question. We're going to jump back to development. What lessons would you draw as Wayzata mayor from the ongoing Panaway Lake Walk and Community Docks project that might guide future development decision-making?
Well, it's a big project, and I think throughout the project, the city learned that they needed help in managing the construction. I think at phase one, they learned that they needed experts on the ground. I think that worked out well. I think, again, that was a lot to digest, a lot to swallow. I think I think we have to be careful as we embark on projects of that size again.
Thank you. Barry Pettit.
Development. You know, it's interesting with that specific project, there's sort of two parts to it. One is the concept, the idea, and the other is the execution. And those great projects bring them both together. And I think the hiccup that I see with the Lake Walk, et cetera, all the Lake Street design is the detail. I think it's very marginal. I would not give it a great grade in the detail. Again, the concept I get, but when I look at the way that it works, when I look at the results that seemed folks didn't think through clearly, that's what I struggle with, because everything is about the detail. How we wind up with the toilet seems to be a big detail, but we did. So that's what I would argue, is that concept versus execution.
Thank you. And Andrew Mullen.
So with regard to that project, I think your question was what can you learn from it to change in the future? So I think we got community engagement right. We did 10 years of it. We engaged the community deeply. I actually share a little bit of what Candidate Pettit said. Controlling scope and cost, because we traded off things or made decisions based on not having enough money, which is why the bathroom ended up where it is, because you had to spend $500K more to get the conduit across the way or back over to the parking ramp, which is where the bathroom should have been in the first place. So we need to get tighter on construction management, on managing scope, and then not trading off things that disappoint residents. By and large, though, I think that project is done fine. I think it's a community amenity, and it gets good marks generally. But details matter, and scope, and making sure that you're managing that and managing costs. You don't have to trade things off, is what I would have learned from that project.
Thank you. Excuse me. And you'll be first for our next question. If a constituent comes to you requesting a change in city code, how would you go about making a decision on that matter?
Interesting. Well, I've got an example that dozens, if not more than 100 people have asked me, why don't we change the ordinances to have a fine for more than $30 for noise? It's 125 in the state statute. The first thing I would do is have a community meeting to open the book and review all of the ordinances, read them aloud, find out where the gaps are, and determine and prioritize what needs to be done first. So I think there's lots of folks asking for ordinance changes right now, and they relate to noise, traffic violations, loitering. All of that needs to be addressed. And so let's open the book, let's roll up our sleeves, let's get in this room, let's read them, let's up the fines, let's get them changed, and let's get them implemented.
Thank you. Jeff Buchanan.
Well, if a citizen came to me, it'd be great. I'd love to have conversations, and I'm a terrific problem solver. I would have to understand the scope of what the comment was, and then take it to the appropriate internal party, staff, and or planning commission, depending on what the issue was. But I love the ideas, I love people coming forward, and I welcome it.
Thank you. And Barry Pettit.
You know, it's interesting because people come forward with an idea, and there are times you say, that really is an interesting thought. Haven't thought that one through. And it kind of is inspiring, and you run with that. And then there are times people come with ideas that aren't so inspiring. And I think that's the number one litmus test on these is because you are going to get a sample of both of those. So that's where you have to start out. But it is interesting when people do have ideas, and if you start to massage it and, again, ask more questions about it, often you can come up with some pretty interesting solutions. There's a lot of people out there. A lot of people see things we don't see. I have different experiences, so it's a nice way to get some input in a pretty easy fashion.
Thank you. And the next question will be the last question that we can fit in. And yes, you get to be first.
I'm getting this now.
If elected mayor, how will you work with and use the views and recommendations of the city's commissions?
You're saying all the committees, the planning commission?
However
Anybody?
you choose to consider the question.
Okay.
Commissions.
You know, it's actually fascinates me the number of groups that we do have in the city. And there is inherently, when you put together a commission or a committee, they seem to move up the food chain. And they assume that you've put this group together because there's some value there and they're going to bring something to the table. I often think that it adds more complexity to the situation. So one of the reviews I would like to go through is what do we do with these other groups beyond the traditional planning commission and the city council to make sure we're lean there, because remember, committees cost money. Some staff person has to be involved in them, they got communications, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The critical thing I like with commissions is come up with an idea, whether you like it or not, come up with an idea. Don't be afraid of an idea, because again, every once in a while there's a great gem that comes forward and you say, never thought of that. That's an interesting way to spin that. So that's really what I think those groups bring to the table.
Thank you. Jeff Buchanan, please.
Great, thanks. I sat on the Planning Commission. These commissions are made up of citizens, and these people represent different neighborhoods, different ideas, and I value that. Planning Commission goes through a lot of hard work. These development applications are enormous and they're complex. We lean on, as a council, we lean on the commissions for information, giving us good advice and insight. These are the citizens. They don't cost any money. These are volunteers. And I would work very closely with them. I think they're terrific. And again, I've sat on at least 3. And it's great work they do.
Thank you. Andrew Mullen, please.
Thanks. I think I addressed this in one of my earlier comments, but I'll just restate. I mean, I think these boards and commissions are extremely valuable. Going back to my comment about getting input before decisions are made, that's the best proxy. People serving on those commissions, I've served on many of them, are actually citizens. And so, again, I would focus on giving them a tighter charter of what the council seeks input on and what they could help us guide on making decisions, inform on decisions. And second, to reiterate what I said before, each of these little commissions has a staff liaison, becomes the interface to the council. I'd flip that. I would lift up a citizen to be the liaison and to communicate and engage with the council. And I think with all of that input, we'll get to better decisions. And that's it.
Thank you very much. Now is the time for your closing statements, and each of you will have up to 2 minutes for your closing statement. And the first person for this is Jeff Buchanan.
First again. Thank you. And thanks again for attending tonight. I hope you learned something about each of the candidates, and you now have a better idea who has the ability, the personality to lead Wayzata for the next 4 years. It's important that you select a candidate that has the temperament to lead the council as it confronts the issues we will face as we move forward. It's been many years, as Andrew pointed out, since you've been offered a choice for mayor. This year, I believe your choices are clear. My vision for Wayzata embraces the successes we have enjoyed and leverages them for our future. We are truly a blessed community, and we have a lot for which to be grateful. If elected, I intend to make a difference. I intend to make a difference by listening to you. I intend to make a difference by creating more transparency. I will make a difference by protecting our natural resources, and I will make a difference by continuing to invest in your security. I'm an optimistic person, and I believe in us and what lies ahead. Please vote for me on November 5th. I will not disappoint you. Thank you for your time and attention tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Next is Barry Pettit.
Oh. Okay, don't start yet. I'm going to take a deep breath.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. The Panaway and the Lake Walk have changed Wayzata forever. We are an official tourist destination. The consequences are emotionally and financially consuming our town. And be prepared for the hundreds of kids in yellow buses resulting from the upcoming Phase 3. We have also become a free regional playground: pickleball, the skating rink, softball field, swimming beach, children's playground, tennis court, dog park, shaver park, Panaway, Lake Walk, and our beautiful lakefront toilets. 90% of the users are not from Wayzata, and yet we pay 100% of the cost for all of these. It's simply not fair. It's time for a pay-to-play. It was interesting, the Excelsior city manager told me 110 parking meters in Excelsior yielded $500,000 a year in revenue. I'm very frustrated that our town has become a random potpourri of designs. We need to develop a Wayzata character. While many believe it's too late, I see several redevelopment projects in our future: Walgreens, the Village Shops, Colonial Square, the series of buildings east of Cove, East Wayzata Boulevard, the Crispin Green building. Basically, every one-story building in this town is a strong candidate for redevelopment. I'm excited to lead the aesthetic revisioning of our town. It's long overdue. The past cannot be prologue. Our population is not growing, and our roads, sewer, and waters remain constant, and yet 8 city employees were added in the last 3 years with another eminent hire. This is puzzling and may be completely justified, but for the sake of you taxpayers, I need to be convinced. Essentially, we need to fix a long list of nagging hiccups caused by our new popularity, and we will urgently deal with each one, with no new commissions, no new committees, and no new consultants. Your city council has 4 talented people, and together we will fix, stabilize, and reinvent Wayzata. Thank you.
Thank you. And Andrew Mullen, please.
Okay, we're almost done. So thanks for coming tonight. Your engagement and willingness to be here and online is great for our community. And you've heard a number of different ideas and contrasting visions here for Wayzata. In my view, most residents want the same thing, whether you live on the lake or in the central district or on the north side of 394, where 20% of our electorate live, in Margaret Circle, Harmony Circle, Hollybrook. They want fiscal responsibility, safety, real solutions to our traffic and congestion, citizen input before decisions. So we need a leader who's going to address those issues with proposing and implementing solutions and a candid attitude without raising your taxes every year or compromising the quality of life for those who have come to love Wayzata. That's what I've done my entire career in business and in the public sector. So the issues, again, I'm hearing are fiscal responsibility, public safety, alleviating congestion, putting the public back in public service, not allowing the budget to balloon in 4 years by 40%. I do believe that visitors do need to pay a share of where Wayzata is, and I would support a referendum for a sales tax. I would support charging for parking at least 3 times a year, but I'd have an exemption for all residents. They don't need to be charged for parking. Another thing that I think is important for constituents to consider as you make this choice is your mayor should live here full time and not winter in another state. And you should have access to your leaders at all time of the year. And as I said in my opening statement, I'm the candidate that will roll up his sleeves and be a trusted, independent voice for Wayzata to address our challenges, to listen to our residents. And the people of Wayzata deserve that. I'm Andrew Mullen. I'm asking for your vote, whether it be tomorrow, early voting starts tomorrow, or all the way to November 5th. And thank you for being here tonight. We appreciate it. We all do. Thank you.
This concludes the Wayzata Mayor Candidate Forum. We close with several thank yous. First, on behalf of the League of Women Voters, please join me in thanking the candidates for being part of the democratic process by running for office and being willing to serve the community. Thank you also to the League of Women Voters volunteers, our audience here, and those viewing this forum virtually for your participation in this candidate forum. Thank you to the Wayzata City staff for supporting this event and for broadcasting live streaming, and recording tonight's forum. On-demand viewing can be accessed at lwvwpa.org. For additional election information, we encourage you to visit vote411.org, the League of Women Voters award-winning one-stop shop where voters can register to vote, find their polling place, view candidate forum recordings, and learn how candidates stand on the issues. Please remember to vote in the November 5th election by absentee ballot or in person. On the November ballot, Minnesota voters will be asked to reauthorize or end a constitutional amendment allocating 40% of state lottery proceeds to the Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund. More than 50% of voters must vote yes to approve constitutional protection of the system. Leaving the question blank counts as a no vote. Please be sure to look for the amendment on your ballot and vote. Early voting begins tomorrow here at Wayzata City Hall, September 20. Your vote is your voice. League of Women Voters welcomes new members, both women and men, and again, visit lwvwpa.org. Thank you so much, and good night, everybody.